Socrates as a torpedo fish. This is part of a general reading of Meno, but it's interesting to show that just as in the Apology, Socrates was given the metaphor of being a fly disturbing Athens, so we find another imagery of Socrates in the Meno. Meno, as we have seen so far, unsurprisingly, is an erotic man and the student of the sophists. As such, he attempts a rhetorical diversion in his discussion or dialogue with Socrates. Previously, Socrates chastises Meno for taking unfair advantage of his youth and beauty to pressure him into answering questions that the older and by all accounts physically unattractive Socrates is unwilling to address. Socrates, even before this point, had emphasized the difficulty in trying to say whether virtue can be taught without first knowing what virtue is, just as no one could informedly answer whether Mino was good looking, rich, and well born without first knowing who Mino is. By being able to identify him as an individual and distinguish him from other persons. Mino's handsome appearance is integral to the complete portrait of the erotic man and fits well into the discussion of whether superficial beauty, as Mino thinks of it, is necessarily identical with good in the sense of moral virtue. And it is here that we find Socrates complaining. He says, "You are outrageous, Mino. You bother an old man to answer questions, but you yourself are not willing to recall and to tell me what Georgias says that virtue is." "After you have answered this, Socrates, I will tell you," says Meno. And Socrates continues, "Even someone who was blindfolded would know from your conversation that you are handsome and still have lovers." "Why so?" asks Meno. And Socrates replies, "Because you are forever giving orders in a discussion, as spoiled people do, who behave like tyrants as long as they are young. And perhaps you have recognized that I am at a disadvantage with handsome people, so I will do you the favor of an answer." Socrates might be concerned that Meno's beauty or good looks could become an impediment to his discovery of philosophical truth and his setting forth on the road to moral self-improvement. If so, he wants to put Meno on notice that he must be allowed no special privilege in their inquiry. Once Socrates has refuted Meno's best attempt to define the concept of virtue, Meno does not simply admit defeat and acknowledge with Socrates that the true nature of virtue is more elusive than he had previously thought. Instead, Meno attempts to derail their discussion, making it seem that there can be no progress in efforts to discover philosophical truths. Meno tries to distract Socrates from the question at issue by referring indirectly to the philosopher's philosophical appearance in one of the most famous metaphors in all of Plato's writings. He compares Socrates to a torpedo fish. or an electric ray that stuns its prey into silence, just as Socrates, through skillful deployment of the elenchus, has left Meno speechless concerning the concept of virtue, which of course he otherwise thought he understood. Meno now presents himself as a victim of Socrates' dialectical prowess. Let's read these from Meno 80 to 80b. Socrates, before I even met you, I used to hear that you are always in a state of perplexity, and that you bring others to the same state. And now I think you are bewitching and beguiling me, simply putting me under a spell, so that I am quite perplexed. Indeed, if a joke is in order, you seem in appearance and in every other way to be like the broad torpedo fish, for it too makes anyone who comes close and touches it feel numb. And you now seem to have had that kind of effect on me, for both my mind and my tongue are numb, and I have no answer to give you. Yet I have made many speeches about virtue before large audiences on 1,000 occasions. Very good speeches, as I thought, but now I cannot even say what it is. I think you are wise not to sail away from Athens to go and stay elsewhere, for if you were to behave like these as a stranger in another city, you would be driven away for practicing sorcery. The final sentence in Meno's response prefigures the hostility that Socrates' practice of philosophy aroused among the people of Athens. By questioning the citizens and exposing their false pretensions to knowledge, Meno asserts that Socrates is engaged in a kind of sorcery, the consequences of which Meno indicates Socrates would do well to avoid. More importantly, Meno draws an image of Socrates as able, like the torpedo fish, to shock and silence his dialectical opponents. Socrates would respond in this way: "You are a rascal, Meno, and you nearly deceived me." "Why so particularly, Socrates?" asks Meno. "I know why you drew this image of me." "Why do you think I did?" asks Meno. "So that I should draw an image of you in return. I know that all handsome men rejoice in images of themselves. It is to their advantage, for I think that the images of beautiful people are also beautiful. But I will draw no image of you in return." Now, if the torpedo fish is itself numb and so makes others numb, then I resemble it, but not otherwise. For I myself do not have the answer when I perplex others, but I am more perplexed than anyone I cause perplexity in others. So now, I do not know what virtue is. Perhaps you knew before you contracted me, but now you are certainly like one who does not know. Nevertheless, I want to examine and seek together with you what it may be. Socrates, in these lines, claims that he will not offer an image of Meno in return for Meno's image of him as a torpedo fish. Socrates accepts Meno's caricature of himself as a torpedo fish, but only on the condition that, unlike a real torpedo fish, He's able to stand his prey into silence because he is also unable to speak, having been numbed into silence by his own perplexity about the meaning of concepts. Socrates believes he has uncovered Meno's ulterior motive in proposing the image of the torpedo fish, and declares that he will not do the same for Meno, which would be favorable to the handsome young Thessalian. It is not entirely clear that Socrates sticks to his resolve of not offering an image of Meno, although the image he finally presents is arguably even less flattering than the one Meno offers of Socrates. Meno makes a purely physical comparison that Socrates's uh, that emphasizes Socrates's unhandsome appearance. The image by which Socrates ironically depicts Meno, in contrast, is not a superficial representation of Meno's external appearance, but of Meno's psyche or soul, as that with which Socrates is generally concerned, as something deeper and even more important from Socrates' perspective. The state of Meno's soul, if the interpretation is correct, is by no means in agreement with his handsome physical appearance, but suggests a perceptive diagnosis by Socrates of Meno's underlying character defects, such a beauty in the beast. To consider this reading of the text, we will continue to see how the rest of Plato's dialogue plays out in order to understand the hidden image of Meno about which Socrates offers only implicit hints so far. If you like this content, please do not hesitate to like and subscribe to the YouTube page Samo't sa Simula. Thank you very much.